Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of People Who Inspire. I see that a lot of you sent some comments regarding my guest today. And it's another wonderful week. And I'm really privileged and excited to be hosting Joey on People Who Inspire. Hi, Joey. How are you? And how's your week been?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you for having me on your show. I've been following it for quite some time, and it's always a pleasure to talk to new people and just to share my experience. So yeah, it's been a good week. Been very fairly busy, but we move, as they say.
Yes. We don't have an option. We keep moving. I was I think before I reached out to you, I found out that your brother Ezekiel is your brother, right? Because it's quite a small world.
It is a small world, isn't it?
Because
we share. Fortunately, unfortunately, we share the same mommy and daddy. And
yes. I actually Ezekiel was my floor mate in Kunti in KNUST. So we're on the same floor and we're actually neighbors, like next door neighbors, first year undergrad. So yeah, it's quite a small world. Yeah. And like every time when I have my guests, I try to, look at like the journey, right? So the vision that I have for this platform, PWI, is to really look at the journey, right? The destination is fun. Everyone sees the destination. In other words, the key milestones, but I'm more interested in like how my guests got to where they are. So can you like tell us a little bit about yourself, right? How like did you grow up? How was it like growing up? Did you grow up in Ghana? Can you just walk us through, like from senior high school to university, up until this point, just a very kind of a short summary.
Yeah, no, I'll try and share that. I'm just conscious that obviously your guests are keen to know me, but I think they'll probably be more interested about more about my present and my future. So I'll make it very snappy just so they have a background. So I was born in Ghana. I was born in Kumasi. I have a few siblings whom you've mentioned. Ezekiel. Ezekiel is my other brother. School did my junior secondary school, senior secondary school in Kumasi. I was at Prempeh College, where I studied for 3 years, and then from there moved to KNUST, where I was part of the business school, and once again specialized in banking and finance for a few good years. And then after that, joined at the time a bank that was based in Ghana called Intercontinental Bank, a Nigerian bank. Now they've been, I believe, acquired by another Nigerian bank called Access Bank. I remember when I was in final year, they came to campus looking to recruit undergrads, basically. So he turned up, did all the aptitude tests and stuff like that, and was lucky to be selected as one of the individuals to then go complete my national service with the bank. So I then kind of started to do that, but just around the time before graduation ceremony, I was told that I won a scholarship to come to the UK to study and do a master's degree on a scholarship. So that was a defining moment for me because it was something that I kind of always wanted to do. I wasn't quite sure how it was going to happen. I kind of started to do a lot of research about universities in the UK, in the US as well, but I hadn't kind of quite decided yet. I was kind of still putting in a few applications. But yeah, that opportunity came, and it came on the back of me being valedictorian in the business school, or to be fair, in the College of Arts and Social Science.
Wow.
So yeah, this was in 20, and and the opportunity with a full funded scholarship to come to London. So I then said goodbye to Intercontinental Bank at the time, and came to the UK and then started studying. So whilst I was here, I did a few part-time job at McDonald's, which is where I'm a franchisee now, and absolutely loved it. There's a cultural shock. So anyone that has obviously relocated from one country to another, regardless, especially when you've moved at an age where your behaviors, your language, your demeanors have all been formed. It's a very
Yes.
big cultural shock adjusting, especially when you're combining a few things. You're combining being in school as well as in the work environment. And not a lot of people end up doing that and doing that really well, because it takes a few years to unlearn some of the things that you have learned and to learn the new things that actually will make you successful. And for me, once again, that was a pivotal moment in my journey. I then completed my master's degree and joined a graduate scheme with a bank, the Royal Bank of Scotland, which is now called NatWest in the UK. And and worked there for a few good years. Rose up fairly quickly, became a very strong project manager, well regarded in the bank, and basically was headhunted by a consultancy firm. So I ended up in one of the largest global consultancy firms in the world, Accenture, and spent another 3 years, helping financial services banks land projects, deliver very exciting change to their people, their technology, their processes and systems. Really love doing that. I learned a lot of skills from that gig, and moved to a smaller consultancy firm on the back of that, just so I could accelerate my growth and then also learn as much as possible. So once again, as I did that, I kind of continued to progress in my career to where I was quite senior, leading large teams, delivering large scale projects with teams that were offshore and onshore as well, huge budgets, programs, and once again learned quite a lot how to manage stakeholders, how to manage budgets, deliver projects, and kind of hone my leadership skills really, which would become very essential in the next stage of my life. So to cut a long story short, just when the pandemic hit, myself and a few friends got together, started a business that became hugely successful in healthcare. And once again, on the back of that success, went back to McDonald's, which is the business or the company that I worked for when I first kind of got to the UK, and told my story of a young, ambitious 22-year-old that came to the UK on a scholarship from Ghana to pursue his dreams. He started working at McDonald's, moved on to work in banking, financial services, consultancy, started a business, made it successful, published a children's book, done quite a lot, released a few mobile applications on the app market as well. Basically, a very adventurous person that wanted to come back to the brand, be an ambassador for it, run a business, and very tough process to go through in the UK. It's a very exclusive club to be part of, and and they said yes to me after 11 grueling months of very tough interviews and assessments and talking to psychologists, trying to understand your motivations and stuff like that.
What?
And yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that later if you're interested to know.
Yes,
And
yes.
and last year in September, got my first franchise store in Dagenham in East London in the UK, which is what I've been doing for the last 7 months. And on a day-to-day basis, it just involves running that business, that global brand. We see hundreds of customers on a daily basis. My team comprises about 120 individuals that are local, who obviously have a job because I have that business, leading them from the front, adhering to the McDonald's brand standards, integrating with the community, sponsoring local partnerships, and basically just being ambassador for the brand and running the business, being an exemplary franchisee that is demonstrating that they care about the brand, they can protect it, and they can run a profitable business, which is what McDonald's expects when anyone kind of joins them as a franchisee. So yeah, it's been a very exciting journey, which obviously started in Kumasi in Ghana, all the way through Prempeh College to KNUST, eventually to the UK to study a master's degree, and yeah, to where I am now as a franchisee of a global brand.
Wow. Like, when I remember when I first reached out to you, I was like, okay, maybe Joey maybe schooled abroad his whole life. Like it never like crossed my mind that, okay, so this is a gentleman from Kumasi, goes to the UK, and then he owns like a franchise. I'm like Joey, I mean, you say it very simply, but this is like, I don't know how to put it. Like, this is like the pinnacle of this, is the dream of. So I did a bit of research on how to get into. I learned there's even an academy or something like that for McDonald's. Like, it's grueling, right? And then here you are, a Kumasi boy. You finished your masters. You've done consulting, like you said, risen through the ranks, and then said, okay, I'm going to get into entrepreneurship. But we'll get there. Let's dial back a little bit, because I was also in the business school at some point, right? When you left KNUST, I mean, fantastic that, you're valedictorian and then everything. But when you compare the education you had at KNUST with the education you received in the UK, what was the immediate kind of shock in the two educational systems when you first moved? Was it difficult to acclimatize, or?
It was. I remember doing my master's degree in the UK and being very very frustrated with the kind of foundation that I built in terms of education in Ghana, and I wish that I had done a little bit more. I think there were two things. One of them was the fact that obviously I had studied an undergraduate degree in Ghana, and I was now doing a postgraduate degree in the UK. Everyone that has done both knows that one is basically giving you the fundamentals, the theory, with a little bit of application. Whereas when you're doing a master's degree, that is very challenging. You're being challenged to do your own research, do your own learning, and to think about how you can apply those theories to everyday business or whatever you're studying, everyday practice. And so that was the first shock. The fact that it was just simply the fact that that was an undergraduate degree. This is a postgraduate. And I think the second thing that really shocked me as well was that the focus, especially with the Ghanaian education system, is being able to consume information and then basically pour it back in a way where your lecturers are happy that you have understood what has been explained. Whereas that is very, very different. The education system here in the UK would probably focus, to be fair, as is in most parts of the world, in developed countries, would focus on building confidence around the subject matter and being able to do that. Every day I meet people in my business, in other parts of day-to-day life, where they are looking for opportunities to grow, to develop, to build their careers, their lives. And they're telling me they have a master's degree, and I am kind of, from conversation, trying to understand what value they can add to a work environment. And I struggle to find that, because for them it was, I have been told that I need to do an undergraduate degree, then I do a master's degree, and that should solve all my problems and set me up for life. It doesn't. It doesn't at all. That combination of degrees only puts you in a place where you can start to knock on doors. The doors don't open just because you have them. It takes a different scale to be able to then get those doors open to you, especially when, like myself, you're an immigrant. You've had to go into environments where people may not look like you or talk like you, and you've had to adapt to prove that you can add immense value to an environment. So I think those were the two key things that surprised me. One, the fact that it was just a tougher degree than what I'd studied, and the two, the fact that the fundamentals that had been ingrained in my brain was more about how do I pour this information back, whereas now it was all about get in front of the class, tell me why oil and gas contracts in developing worlds do not add a lot of value to countries, and if you were a CEO of a company like that, what would you do to address the challenges? And that is when, as they say, the rubber hits the road, and you have to think on your feet and be able to confidently explain why you would take some actions and not the other options. So yeah, that was kind of the key observations that I had.
Wow. I have not had, let's say, an education outside, so I can only, let's say, glean from what you have shared. I think that there's been this, especially the second part where you mentioned that, like in our educational system in Ghana, we are focused on kind of just assimilating information or consuming information and kind of, pouring it during the exams. And I hear this a lot, but I've not experienced it. And like what I wanted to, let's say, ask you was that, like, especially when you graduate top of your class, like yourself, and you go to a new environment, did you feel at any point that, like, Charlie, the squad here, like, I'm not up to par with them? Did you at any point feel that, like, because maybe the foundation you had was not the same as what, you're pursuing, did it affect your self-esteem or your self-confidence at any point?
No, I wouldn't say it did. I think one of my core principles in life has always been self-belief and self-confidence. And sometimes you might not know the answer to a particular question or challenge, but if you have the self-belief that you can uncover what the solution is and go with it or implement it, I think that kind of puts you halfway there, and the rest is basically just the determination and the grit to be able to kind of see through. So whereas there were times where I knew that I was lacking in what it took to be able to get to the end result, my theory in life has always been there is a way out. I may not know it now, but I need to look for it. I need to find it, and I just need to go with it. And so, yep, there were times where I'm like, yep, I don't have this thing. I don't get it. I might need extra support. I might need extra help. But, to be fair, and it's the same thing in the work environment as well, where you might be challenged by a superior or by a certain challenge, a certain project, a certain responsibility, even a certain relationship with a fellow colleague, and you might not have the answer to it. And maybe at that point, there's a part of your brain that is telling you, you might not be cut out for this. You might not have the necessary skill to deal with it or the necessary training for. But if you understand that there's a solution and you look for it and you adapt to it, I think you're halfway there. It's just a matter of just the determination to go through. So, yeah, I never quite felt like I wouldn't make it, and I think if I did, I probably wouldn't be where I am now. For me,
Yeah.
it's all about that self belief and confidence that it's achievable. There are people that have gone before me that have done it, and I think once again that is why role models are extremely important. And maybe we'll probably talk about that later. But at any given stage in my life, whether I was 7 or 10 or 15 or 20, or even in the work environment, I've had someone that I look up to and say, what would this person do in this environment? How will they survive? How are they going to cope with it? And if I think that that person could do it, then I'm like, why can't I? Why can't I do it? I can do it too.
I'm happy that you brought that up because that was going to be my next question. Because I have a theory, and my theory with entrepreneurs, especially like daring entrepreneurs like you, I have a theory that either one of your parents or you have an uncle who is an entrepreneur. There's always something. And it's just a theory that I have, right? So almost all the entrepreneurs I've met who like are really daring are able to kind of, break barriers. Either one of the parents is an entrepreneur or has their own small business somewhere, or they have an uncle who inspired them. So talking about role models, right? First, let's see if my theory holds for you. Does any of your parents like have a business or is an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And someone told me this story, right? They told me
Okay.
that there were two brothers, right? One of them was very highly successful in his field, very accomplished, a very successful dad, dedicated to his family, spent a lot of time with them, taught them the principles of respect, and basically did what a model parent, dad, husband, entrepreneur would do. and his other brother was a much less successful individual, was addicted to substance, and basically hadn't really looked after himself well and hadn't treated his family well. And somebody met them and said to the first brother, the one that had been successful, and said, why how did you become like this? What inspired you? How did you become that? And the answer the person gave is that when I was young, my dad was a drunkard. He was addicted to substance. Didn't give myself and my brother a lot of attention. Didn't mentor me. Didn't groom me. Didn't invest in me. And therefore, I told myself that when I grow up, I'm not going to be like that. And then this same person asked the other brother, who had been obviously less successful, pretty much made a mess of his life, and said, why are you like this? And he said, when I was young, my dad wasn't there for me, didn't invest in me, was addicted to substance, and basically that is who I am today. So they both gave the same reason, the same answer for
The
who they are,
same,
but
yeah.
you can tell that the outcome. So my theory is that it's not about what happens or about the exposure you get sometimes. Sometimes it's just about an innate desire to do right for yourself, for your family, or to add value. And that this kind of takes us into the whole nature nurture debate of,
Nature,
is it
yes,
parents,
yes.
or is it from somewhere? And I know it's a tricky topic that we probably don't want to go into this evening. So yeah, I think it's a blend of both. To answer your question, my dad was a businessman when I was growing up. He had a building
Oh,
construction
okay.
company. And I saw him as an entrepreneur, try to build a future for myself and my siblings.
Wow.
It took him away from the business quite a lot. If there's anything I learned from that, I told myself, when I do become a businessman, I probably wouldn't spend as much time away from my family
The
as my
family.
dad did. But he was a very dedicated man, very devoted to his family, and I think I learned a few things from him. Did I inspire me? 100% it did. I saw what he done, the people that he led, the value that he was able to add to them, and I wanted to be like that. So yeah, maybe that played a part in who I am today. I don't know. Maybe it's something else, but yeah, I was lucky to have an example in my life to what I could do as an entrepreneur if I fully dedicated myself to it.
No, that's an excellent answer. And when I look at your journey, one of the part that really intrigues me, which kind of yeah, it's like you went into consulting, right? And let me put it this way, like what key skills did you, let's say, pick up in consulting that kind of is translated into your life as an entrepreneur? Because I know sometimes there's this whole antithesis between entrepreneurship and consulting, right? People say, yeah, consultants are like, okay, they go by the book, and entrepreneurs kind of don't go by the book. And so you are kind of an enigma to me, like you're a consultant, and then you're like, okay, I'll break all the rules and be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's an interesting one. And for me personally, consulting changed my life. It gave me skills that I never thought I needed, or I never knew even existed. As a management consultant, all you're doing is you're solving problems, and you're going into spaces and you're identifying problems, you're pulling together solutions, and you're selling those solutions to the people, obviously, that own the environment, and telling them that I know you have a problem. I think that this solution works for it. You get thumbs up from them, and then you help them on that journey to basically fix the problem. That was, to sum it up, that was my role as a consultant. And for me, that was just problem solving. It was problem solving. It was stakeholder engagement, and making sure that you were able to use emotional intelligence to take people on your journey to ensure that they saw the point that you're trying to make. And I spent 67 years of my life doing that. And so for me, it wasn't just going into places or environments and trying to give them theory and walk away from it. It was about understanding the situation or the challenge that the client was facing, coming up with a very tangible solution, because you have to own it if you're going to help them implement it, and then getting that to the finish line before you walk away to the next one. And that is what entrepreneurship is. Entrepreneurship is identifying a gap in the market, whether it's a product or a service, being able to have a solution for it, something that people will be willing to spend money for, and pulling everything together, your team, your marketing, your logistics, your supply chain, whatever it is, and making sure that that works and leaves you something in the bank at the end of the day to continue to run the business the next day. So I don't think I would probably be here if I hadn't gone into consulting to build the skill set that I did, because in consulting, you are in boardrooms all the time, you're in meetings, you're convincing people, and that is even extra hard sometimes as an immigrant or as an ethnic minority. So I think that skill actually made it a lot more easier for me to go through the McDonald's franchise application process, because the success rate the year that I got through was 2%. So for every 100 people that applied, only 2 people were successful.
What?
And it's been able to sell, why you think you will be a good addition to a pool of people that run this particular business. And management consulting was really key for me to be able to project that confidence, that ability to be able to come in and add value and solve a problem and move it from there.
Wow. That's 2%. Wow. That's incredible. Talking about McDonald's, right? Can you walk us through the exact moment you said, okay, because you said in your profile you had worked there previously, but what was the exact moment where you said, okay, I'm going to put in an application, a franchisee application? Like, what was there a trigger, right? Or like, what was the exact moment like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I knew that entrepreneurship would give me financial freedom, would give me stability, it gave me the opportunity to do a job that I really love, which once again is, leading teams, solving problems, adding value, and just kind of getting the detail of things. And so there was a part of me that, going back as a 22-year-old working as a customer care assistant in a McDonald's restaurant, where I would see a franchisee come into the store and I would see how they do, and I'm like, I really want to do that. And at the time, it was just, it's a thought. It's something that I wish I could do. I was maybe decades away from it, but it was a thought, something that I kind of had reflected on. I then kind of move on from that, go into a proper career where you're adding value, you're being challenged, and you're doing a lot of things in financial services, like I did. And I realized that that isn't for me. Doing that career, potentially becoming a partner in a consultancy firm, or even working as a banker, that isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I ask myself, what is that point? What is that period in my life where I say I'm going to take a leap of faith? And the thing about career, anyone that is in a career listening to us now knows that the longer you stay in a particular role or environment, the harder it becomes for you to jump ship and move somewhere else. So I knew that, the earliest opportunity that I had to take it to be able to challenge myself to go do something else. So yeah, during the pandemic was once again a very good moment for me to step into entrepreneurship, run a healthcare business, hugely successful, multi-site operations, multiple locations in London, and it kind of gave me a flavor of what this could look like. And I think it was at that point that I said to myself, you know what? Let me go back to this brand, which is very highly respected, one of the top brands globally in the world, and tell them my story and say, listen, I want a piece of the cake, and see whether they're going to let me in. And thankfully, they heard my story, they saw who I am, what I could potentially bring to the table, and they let me in as well. So yeah, I think for me that pivotal moment was coming to the realization of, do I see myself in management consulting for the rest of my life? The answer was a definite no. And where do I see myself? I wanted to lead people, solve problems, run businesses, and therefore kind of knocked on the door of McDonald's at that point, and got going.
when I was watching I was watching the McDonald's franchisee video, and then what caught my eye when you were talking, when you're talking to the camera, you mentioned about the fact that you had employed, I think, 100 people, local people, and to think that 100 families or 100 people's livelihoods, right, literally are existing because you decided to take that leap of faith, like you mentioned, right? So and this is just like from your point of view, like beyond the, I wouldn't, maybe I'll call it maybe fame, or beyond the fame that comes with being a franchisee, how important is this journey, right, as far as creating impact in your community is concerned? Like when you wake up every day, do you think about these 100 people, and like beyond, even beyond the franchise brand, whatever it is, like how do you handle the people you employ, right? Like how do you see them? How do you? I'm trying to I'm struggling to frame it, because like I want to understand like how you're able to wake up every day and then you think about them and how you're going to make their lives better.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to having effective systems in place. And I think about that and I say, have I got the right recognition to recognize my people that are adding value, so that they want to wake up and to come to work and work in a safe, respectful, inclusive environment? If I have that system in place, then check. Do I have a system that allows these people to come, earn a decent wage, do what they need to do, have the right support, training, development that allows them to serve my customers better? Check. And I kind of go down that list. And if I feel that that system is in place and exists, then that allows me to then focus my attention on other areas where I could add value to the business. If there's any part of my business that I believe hasn't got that system or structure in place, then I need to spend time on it. I need to fix it. I need to identify people in my team that I can work with to correct that. So I think, and once again, that is the benefit of having, a global brand like McDonald's that have done these for decades, and therefore have the blueprint and will support you on that journey to say, these are the areas where we believe you might have gaps that you might need to focus on. And I think that makes it easy. I think it takes away the stress of, the burden of I have to look after this number of people. And I think for me as well, one of the biggest parts of this role, or what I do now, is the fact that I know this is just the beginning of my story. A lot of people would maybe see me come to the UK, very inspirational story, you go from what I've done to what I'm doing now and say, that is fantastic. But for me, this is just the beginning. The fantastic part of it hasn't happened yet. So it will be going from that franchisee that has one store to growing that to impacting not just 100 people, but thousands of people. And so when you think about the fact that your future could be bigger than your present, it takes away some of the stress, because you're like, this is easy. The difficult bit is yet to come. And I think it just allows me to power through it to say, this is the easy part of the journey. I need to enjoy this time whilst I can, because a time is coming where there'll be bigger problems to solve, bigger challenges to go through. So I think, I celebrate the fact that I am in a really good place. I'm very privileged. I really acknowledge that and I accept that, but I need to keep working to be able to grow and to do a lot more for the future.
Yeah, I mean that's a fantastic mindset to have. It's always kind of, when I think about entrepreneurs, or people who, by God's grace you've gotten to this point, like you said, where for some people you have arrived, but you as an entrepreneur, that this is just the beginning, right? How do you balance, right, success, and at the same time ambition, right? Because I see that, for me, I think like someone in your situation, this would be like an everyday battle, right? Because then, okay, I'm successful, or at least I'm perceived to be successful. Do I need to push further, or I can, be okay? And, so how do you balance, like your present success and the ambition, like you rightly mentioned, like 1,000 employees and even beyond?
Yeah, I think my principle in life is that the moment anyone believes that they've got to the point where they know it or they get it, or there is nothing left to be learned or nothing left to be achieved, that is where everything goes downhill. Um, and that is where they start to lose actually what they have. And so for me, it's a constant cycle of self development, continuous improvement, and asking myself, if I had a dream to get to this point 10 years ago and I've made it here, what does the dream look like in 20 years' time? And the dream always has to be much bigger than what you have at the present time. So if you take somebody that maybe works in an office environment, for example, a 9 to 5 role, if they are not telling themselves that, and that is if they want to, they're not telling themselves that I want to be better, I want to be in this other senior role than what I'm doing now in the next few years. If they're not working towards that, they're not developing towards that, there's a very high likelihood that they're actually going to slip down, and their performance is either going to be perceived as not up to the required standard, or they're just going to be managed out of their team into roles where they probably won't be able to develop. So it's the same thing, whether it's education, whether it's in a work environment, whether it's an entrepreneur, there has to be a plan to an end that is bigger than what the current looks like. And I think for me, the way that I balance my determination or my ambition with the perceived successes, like I said, this is just the beginning. I have a bigger plan than what I have now. And so I've got to apply humility to it. I've got to understand that my journey is not complete and that success hasn't been achieved yet. It's still working through day to day. This is my plan to get to the end game. And maybe I will get to the end game at some point, but until I get there, it's all about that focus, that determination, that humility, and self development to allow me to get to where I'm like, this is it. I'm happy to be where I am. I'm comfortable with the impact that I've made in other people's lives. And if anything happened to me at that point, I feel like my purpose would have been achieved.
Yeah, it's all about purpose with entrepreneurs. I always hear entrepreneurs saying, yeah, it's all about that purpose. And the fact that for me, I think what really encourages me, or that really kind of moves me a lot, is the fact that you have that mindset that, it's not really just about, of course, the cash flow and whatever it is that requires to run a business, but you are also looking at from an impact point of view. Now, I think what a lot of my viewers will be much interested in, right? Let's get into McDonald's. So like, how was the experience like for you? The selection process, the training? Because I know, like you rightly said, I mean, if it's 2%, then that's even less than, it's easier to get into Harvard than to get, because Harvard is like 4%, I heard. So that's like, so how can you tell us how the experience was like, right? Because I also know that being an immigrant and, being in such a space, right? It's not easy. You have to grapple with a lot of things. So how was the experience like through the training and selection process? And can you also tell us how you felt?
Yeah, you're
I'm
right.
very interested in the details. Yeah.
Yeah, it's no, that's a really good question. But it's a tough process. It's the I would say the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, going through that process. From the time that I put in my application to where I got the phone call to say, Joey, you're going to be a franchisee, it took about 11 to 12 months. And it was 11 to 12 months of lots of presentations, sharing my motivations, my skill set, my experience, why I think I would make an ideal franchisee for such a global brand. Lots of interviews, interviewing all the way from the recruiter to the chief executive level, where you're meeting the CFOs of McDonald's UK on a panel with two other C-suite executives who are grilling you for a couple of hours, asking you all sorts of questions. Um, Within that time frame, they have you talk to an organizational psychologist who gets to understand your motivations, what drives you, what value you can add to the brand. There's all the checks that go in terms of well, are you a good citizen? Have you done all the right things in your past? The checks that happen with in the UK HMRC, which is the tax man, basically, to make sure that you are a citizen that is law abiding, does all the right things, pays the right amount of tax. To looking into your bank statements to understand that as an entrepreneur you have the right cash flow to be able to invest money that has been earned, in all the right spaces as well. So yeah, it's 11 months of so many things happening in your life. And if I'm being honest, I don't think it would have been possible if I didn't have the right people in my life as well. So, my wife Ajwa, who I have 3 kids with, it
Wow.
was pretty much a partnership. We want to do this. This is going to be really tough. And obviously, whilst you're doing this, you are not just sat at home doing research. You're a dad, you're a husband, you probably are still in employment because you don't know what the
Yes.
result is going to
The outcome would be,
be.
yeah.
And absolutely, so it's a full on role. And there were times where you come out of an interview and are like, my goodness, this is a really tough thing to do. So yeah, really really tough. They put you in a restaurant, they observe you for a week where they see how do you interact with customers, with people, how quickly do you learn processes and systems, would you be a good ambassador for the brand. Different people write reports about you, that goes all the way to head office. You write a report about your experience as well, and throughout the process they say to you that at any given point in time they could just say to you that, unfortunately, Joey, this is the end of the process for you. And thank you very much for your
Wow.
participation. We won't take the application any further. And they will not tell you why. And that's because they may have seen something they don't like, or they wouldn't basically just say to you, that's it, that's the end of the road. So you're going through the process, know that at any point in time, they could just cut you off, and that would be it. You'd have to kind of begin the journey somewhere else. So yeah, it's I'd say it's probably the toughest 11 months of my journey, of my life, kind of going through that process. And when you do get that phone call at the end, of that grueling process, that background checks, the in restaurant shadowing, the reports, and all that, it's self validation that that belief that you had in yourself that you could do this, regardless of your background, your experience, your race, your accents, or your ethnic minority background, anything at all, that people see the value that you can add. And just a gush of self fulfillment, and you realizing that people see the good in me, they see the value that I can add, and that feeling, I believe, is for me what was really refreshing to be told that, what, we think that you would be a fantastic addition to our business and our brand and be an ambassador for it.
Amazing. So Joey, where were you when that phone call came, and how did you feel? Did you like scream, shout? Like, how was your reaction?
So yeah, I mean, I remember. So I'd done my final panel interview. Once again, the toughest interview I'd ever done. It was individuals in McDonald's, C-level people that knew all the ins and outs of the business, and they were asking questions like, if you were the CEO of this business, what would you do? And in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm not the CEO. I've literally been through the process for a few months. How do you expect me to tell you how you do it? It's about that quick thinking, coming up with innovative solutions, and explaining from your perspective some of the things that you'd seen, basically testing your business acumen. And I think at the end of it, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think I've given everything that I can here. If I get a phone call and it's a positive, I'd be really happy. And if I don't, I've just pick myself up and I'll continue. So I was in the study, at home, and the call came through, and said, listen, Joey, thank you very much for coming in. We think the interview went well. You put yourself forward. You answered most of the questions well. These were the areas that we think you could have done a little bit better. But that said, we'd like to give you the opportunity to become a franchise. I remember just kind of breaking down
That's
into
nice.
yeah, and
Wow.
I think my miss Adjo said to me that, when we got married, you never cried. When we had our first child, you never cried. You had our second, you didn't cry. and you got told that you're going to become a McDonald's franchisee, and that is entirely, that's a letdown for her. But yeah, I think it was that self obligation. It was an emotional moment. I think she actually
Yeah, I
has
can
got pictures
imagine.
of. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's really amazing. And like, so it's been like, how has it been so far? I mean, we've talked about how you got into the McDonald's franchisee program and got selected. Like, so between the time you got that call and now, like, how has the experience been in terms of your leadership, in terms of like your organizational skills, your business skills, like everything? Like, what has it been so far? How has it been so far for you?
Yeah, it's been very challenging. It's I think when people see maybe what I do or my role, they see the glamorous side of it, the privilege that it comes with, the recognition it comes with. And rarely do people see the hard work that involves. When you run a business that is operating from 5 a.m. in the morning and doesn't close till sometimes 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and a space where
Wow.
hundreds of people walk into every single hour, a lot of things can go wrong.
Wow.
Um, you are tracked on every single metric. How fast are you? How clean are you? How safe are you? How convenient are you? And all these metrics are being tracked, not just in your store, but by the franchisor, which is looking at how you are running a business. There is a lot of
Oh,
pressure.
okay.
And so it takes a lot of skill to be able to set your business up in a way where it is self-sufficient, where I could be spending time with you now on your podcast and knowing that I've got the right system in place for my business to run and to run successfully. And if it doesn't, I have again systems in place to be able to rectify that quite quickly. So yeah, as much as it's been very enjoyable to do my dream job, it's been quite challenging as well. It's been adapting very quickly, and every business has very different challenges. So based on the people that you have, you need to adapt your leadership skills. Some people want you to come in, be very clear, communicate, let them know exactly what they need to do, and they go on with it. Whereas some people want you to hold their hands, want you to put an arm around them and take them on a journey and stuff like that. And it's about identifying the people that you have, taking them on that journey, and making sure that you're achieving results. So, yeah, it's been 7 months of just pure determination, hard work, and I think there is always the burden. And once again, anyone that is come from an ethnic minority background, maybe an immigrant, moved into a different environment, and has been successful, try to make it has the burden of I need to work twice as hard to be an example for the people that come after me, so that anywhere I go, when people see others that look like me, feel like me, they want to give them an opportunity because they've seen what I do. So there's that extra burden of I need to work twice as hard. I need to deliver results. One for myself to show what I can do, but also two to be an example for the people that come after me as well. So every day for me is an interview. Every day for me is an opportunity to impress. Every meeting, every interaction is for me is still an interview. So I'm asking myself, will people that walk away from interacting with me or that come into my restaurant or that come into my business go like, wow, this is an amazing franchisee doing amazing things. And we can see why he's here and we can see why he will get to where he will do in the future. And I think for me, that's the challenge. The challenge is not just about the now, and it's about what does the future look like and how do I create the impression or to build a system or the structures to allow me to be able to progress to where I want to be.
I think what here it's so profound because I also felt that same pressure when I first, moved to Europe because, like, yes, you're working to kind of, make ends meet. You're working to, get a salary and contribute whatever you can contribute to a company. But then there's this additional, like unseen, invisible hands that's always stopping you. Say, okay, you're representing us. You're literally representing like, yeah, the minority. And so sometimes this added pressure, it's hard to describe it, but then, you want to make sure that you create a lasting impact such that when another person who's, in the minority also comes or, applies for such a role, they would be considered because of you. That thing it's so profound. I felt that when I first moved to that. Yeah.
It is something that I am incredibly proud of. Obviously, I've had a career in banking, had a career in consulting, run my own business, and obviously do this now. I am confident that if you spoke to my previous bosses, my previous team, my previous employees, obviously there'll be people that would never like my leadership style or kind of butt heads. I'm confident that a high number of them, especially people that maybe managed me or worked directly with me, would say that they would do it again. And that is because wherever I go, I step foot, I just make sure that you never burn any bridges. You work extremely hard. You let people see the value that you bring to the table. And for me, this is the second part of my career. The first part was that very young ambitious man that worked in financial services. This is the second part of my career, working as a franchisee in the UK. My dream is to be able to in a few years time walk up to Chicago, which is where McDonald's global sits,
Or
and
HQ.
say,
Okay.
you guys haven't got this franchise developed in the parts of the world where I come from, in Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Senegal, wherever it is there an opportunity for someone like myself who has done it successfully in the UK to then develop the real estate, the supply chain, the system in place, and go from basically running 20 stores in the UK to running 300 stores, serving people on a day-to-day basis in Abuja, in Yaoundé, in Dakar, in Kumasi, in Takrady, and basically take the brand there because it's been done before. People had to take the brand to Mexico. People had to take it to Indonesia. So what is stopping us from being able to take such a very respected global brand to that part of the world? And I think for me, if I can be an example ambassador for the brand, it makes it very easy for me to fulfill that ambition, that long-term ambition of being the individual that introduces such a powerful brand to the part of the world where I grew up as well. So, like I said, it goes back to every day is an interview because at the end of the day, they're gonna say, "Who is this guy? Where has he come from? What has he done in the past?" And if people cannot say good things about me, no, I might as well just forget about it. So yeah, that's the big dream. That's a big dream.
It's gonna happen. I'm very sure. And if you're watching this, I'm speaking with Joey, and I mean, I'm sure you've been following the conversation. How he managed to, it's really amazing. Like from Kumasi to, I'm even like when I was watching the video, the McDonald's video, and when it got to your part, I literally had goosebumps because I was like, man, like, and when I saw your name, like this is like a Ghanaian name who has literally paved the way. Like if tomorrow, I also, let's say, decide to, get into McDonald's to be a franchisee, I have a blueprint, right? I know that there's someone who has done it before, right? That's like, it's such a powerful message. I'm not sure if like you feel that way, but I felt like when I was watching that video, that's why I even ended up posting it because I felt so, it's not just pride, but there was this, like, okay, it's possible. Like, it's amazing.
I acknowledge that, but like you said, there's also a huge element of humility that it comes with. I think as they say, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think for me, I kind of temper that with a lot of humility to say, maybe if something else had happened somewhere else, I would never have had this opportunity. So I'm grateful that it's come together for me now. This is just the beginning of the journey, and if I keep my head down and I keep doing all the right things, maybe bigger things await as well. So yeah, I do acknowledge that, very, very immense achievement, especially given the context and the background. But yeah, I'm also very, very humbled by the opportunity as well.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for that. And for those of you watching, I mean, we just have like maybe a minute or two, but if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to send them through. My last question, Joey, is I know there's like I said earlier, there's when I look at your journey, it's I mean, it's been like it looks like, at least from where I sit, one successful milestone after the other. Do you have any fears? Is there any fear that keeps you awake at night, or things like that? Like, do you have anything like that, or you don't really entertain fear that much?
No, I think it's normal to be anxious about the future. And I have those anxieties, but I think when it comes to myself, I would rather prioritize my relationships with the people in my life that I love, that I live for, that I want to that I want to be with. So when something awful goes wrong in my business, and it does on a day-to-day basis, I don't invest my energies into that. My energy goes into how can we resolve this, and I move on from that. The anxieties I have are: will I be a good dad to my three children? Would I be able to give them an example where, when they are in their 20s or in their 30s, they reflect on the time they spent with dad and say that that was a good example to us? Would I be a good husband to my wife and give her my time, my dedication, and be able to enjoy life with her? Would I be a good brother to my siblings? Would I be a good son to my? But I think I invest a lot of my energies and anxieties into that, because at the end of the day, no one is going to remember when you come to the end of the journey how hard you worked, or how much you put in the bank account. It's going to be about the impact you had in people's lives, how you made them feel, how you invested into them. I think that is more valuable. So yes, I'm worried about some things in life. Normally it's not about business. My theory has always been, if I can do my best, the rest will look after itself. And I apply that to the other materialistics in life, things in life, career and business and stuff like that. For me, relationships are really important, and I think it's about how do I do the right thing by my kids, by my family, and keep them happy.
I think that's extremely profound. I really I believe in that as well. At the end of the day, like you rightly said, I mean, it's really about the impact that we create. And then, success is quite a paradox. Sometimes I think about it so deeply, because you can be like very successful in business, academics, whatever it is, but then it can come at the expense of the relationships that truly matter. Like you said. So like 100%, I really like, I'm on board with you on that. So I'm happy that you have that, as something that you keep going to, because it's a challenge to kind of, have that, balance. Let's see, are there any questions, or let's see, Joey, the few comments, I'll just bring them to the screen. I don't know who Glory Grace is, but yeah, kind of sending a few comments and emojis. People are just happy. Let me put it that way, because and then Patrice Majite says this is very inspiring. Thanks, Patrice, for tuning in. And then there's one from Fifi Kumson, says really inspiring. What key quality is required for a franchisee? Ooh, that's a deep question.
Yeah, I think it's care about your business, care about your people, and care about your community and your customers. You know, as the franchise always entrusting their brand into your hands, and they want to know that if the rubber hits the road, you're going to prioritize the customers, the people, and the community. And if you can demonstrate to them that that is your number one goal, you look after that. Everything else is secondary. The financials and all that stuff, that's for them. They can always resolve that. They've got the best accountants, the best lawyers in the world. That's not their problem. They just want someone that comes in and looks after the people. So I think that's the number one quality that most franchisors would look for in a franchisee.
That's awesome. And then we have one final comment. Glory Grace, congratulations, Joey. Okay, thanks, Glory Grace. But yeah, do you have any final words? Maybe something that was in your mind that maybe I didn't ask, or anything you want to say as we wrap up?
No, I think one of the things that I always reflect on is that we're all different in life. We all have different goals, different ambitions. Some people want to be at the forefront leading. Some people are very comfortable, being at the back seat and being led. And I would say life is all about identifying what you want to do and where you're comfortable. There's nothing wrong with either of them. Being at the front, being at the back. I think it all comes to identifying what makes you comfortable, what your purpose is, what you have been brought onto this earth to do. And I think once you identify it, you need to work on yourself extremely hard to be able to get there, because the worst thing you want to do is to have the potential for something and never really utilize it. So if your gift or your talent is, mentoring young people or supporting people that are broken, it might not be in the limelight. People might never see it, but if you do that, you do that well. That is you achieving something magnificent. And at the same time, if you have that passion, that potential, that purpose to do things that are in the limelight, you need to go for it. So I think it's a tragedy comparing yourself to other people and wanting what other people want. But if others inspire you to do great things, then you have to put in all the hard work to go for it. And I think for me, that's kind of the big advice that I give to a lot of young people that I see. If you're hungry for success, if you want it, go for it. And if you don't feel like that is you kind of want to take it easy, take it slow at your own pace, then do that as well. But whatever it is that you decide to do, just do it with 110%, because if you don't, you're going to be disappointed at the end of your life. And once again, that would be a tragedy. So yeah, that's the advice I'd give to your listeners that are tuned in there now.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Joey. I really appreciate it. I know we are like 8 minutes above the time, but I really want to say a big thank you on behalf of the viewers and people who tuned in. This is a very big thank you for making time. I know it's a Friday evening, and you probably have other commitments you could have attended to, but you made time for us. So thank you very much. I truly appreciate this time that we've had with you.
No worries. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. I want to say a big thank you to all of you who tuned in. I can see, I think about 50 of you had tuned in at some point, and now it's like 48. So, I really appreciate each one of you, and you can always go back to rewatch the episode. Thank you. And I'll see you next week in the next episode of People Who Inspire.